Ajay Poonia, an inspiration to many. It's a pleasure having you here, sir. So, I have a few questions lined up for today. With your permission, may I begin? My first question is, so what were your aspirations when you were our age, and how is it different from what you're currently doing right now?
It's very different from what I'm currently doing. Never did I really imagine that I would be going on stage, conducting quizzes, or being a show host of any kind. Quizzing is very specific, but like I never thought that I'll be a show host. But I think over a period of time, a lot of things fell into place, and some bit of effort, some bit of luck, of course. But I think what also helps is you put yourself in a position that luck starts knocking on your door.
Yes, sir.
So, but when I was perhaps young, when I was your age, when I was in school, I didn't think of anything like it. I don't really remember what I wanted to be when I would grow up, but I think, but maybe it wasn't something that I was very serious about. And so as a result of which, as life happened, as I grew up, whatever it was that I wanted to be when I was growing up, I didn't care too much about it.
That's interesting, sir. If you could be a silent witness to one day of history, what day would it be and why? A silent witness to one day of history.
Witness. That's a very interesting question. So obviously it has to be something that's before my
Yes, sir.
time. So I would say, I think the independence of India, like how over a night, the night before we were not an independent nation, the next morning we wake up an independent nation. So the feeling of what it means to be an independent nation. We were privileged to be all born in a nation that was already independent. It was handed down to us. So that switchover is something that I wish I could witness.
Right, sir. That's quite interesting. And if you could switch your profession for a day, what would you choose? Only for a day.
I would say play a certain sport like professionally at a professional level, not because of the say glory and glamour that comes with it, but the intensity. I personally believe that sports persons are like at the peak of what is human potential, human capability, because of a lot of micro monitoring and management that goes in, like for a professional cricketer or for a professional footballer, they have 5 people to each person sort of looking after each and everything, how every part of their body is behaving, how their emotions are doing, how they're performing on the field, everything is being analyzed to the T. So that level of intense professionalism, that is something that I'd like to experience with a support staff who sort of monitors everything and how you sort of manage it to continue to remain a perfectly efficient machine.
So, any particular sports?
I would say, in order, number 1, I would prioritize cricket, then football.
Right,
Yeah.
sir. At last, any message for aspiring quizzers?
Just keep reading. Unfortunately, what happens is, and this is sort of me paraphrasing from what somebody told me, an educator told me. He said that these days when we were growing up, because we didn't have immediate access to information and images or videos or anything like that. So if somebody came up and said, hey, do you know what a bird is? And then we would just sort of start imagining, what does a word bird sound like? What could a bird be? And if they say that, it's something that flies in the air, then we would imagine how would flying be possible. So a lot of it was left to imagination. These days, what happens is that the moment you're stuck somewhere, you can find an immediate solution because you can go online and you can find an immediate solution. So the problem is the scope for imagination and creativity has really limited itself because we don't want to stress our brains in terms of thinking. Don't force me to think, that is sort of something that happens. So if you're forcing me to think, I'll just go online and figure it out. I'll immediately get a response. Till at least a couple of years ago, we had to go through layers of Google search But now you can just ask any question and you will be handed down a properly phrased, grammatically correct response, which is amazing, but it has its own downsides. So the downside then becomes that, creativity is found wanting. And so I think the scope for creativity and imagination is limited, which is what increases curiosity. So that's where it connects with the quizzing aspect. That is what leads to curiosity, and you try and figure it out how to, satiate this new curious thought that's come to your head. And so with everything immediately available, you don't really feel the need to be curious. You can always figure out, you'll figure it out. You don't have to go to a library. You don't have to wait for next day's newspaper or next issue of the magazine, whatever it is. It's immediate here and now. So I think that is the only thing that's limited. So you have to keep that in mind, that I understand that information is available on the fingertips, but you also need to know what is it that I need to know, right? So if you don't know that there exists, say, a Muhammad Ali who could defy all odds and be the greatest of all time or something like that, if you don't know, then you don't even have that source of inspiration. So you also need to know what is it that you want to search for, right? So building that base foundational knowledge is important. So read up as much as you can. If reading is not something that interests you anymore, that's fine. Maybe watch videos of something interesting as opposed to just randomly scrolling through whatever is fed to you by those technologists sitting in Silicon Valley in US. So we have to curate our own lives. We live our own lives. Nobody else will live our life on our behalf. So I essentially, long and short of it is, what I'm trying to say is, don't let go of this habit of being a forever learner.
I totally agree. So students these days, including me, need to understand this.
Yeah.
It was great sharing insights with you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your
Nice talking to you. Thank you so much.